Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of all the board games launching on Kickstarter and GameFound over the next week. If you're new to the channel, we do this every week going over all the upcoming campaigns, so if you want to stay up to date, this is definitely a place to be. But before we get started, I do like to go over some new announcements and discoveries that I just found out about over the past week that I think you might be interested in. The first couple here are just new announcements from Awakened Realms. I know a lot of you are fans of the games released by Awakened Realms, so I just want to make a quick mention here. But the first one is called S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the board game, and it is based on the video game with the same name. So if you are a fan of the series or if you're a fan of Awakened Realms, this is definitely one that you'll want to check out, and you can go ahead and check out the preview page now over on GameFound. But that's not it from Awakened Realms, because they did also announce another game that I think a lot of you are going to be excited about, and that is Nemesis Retaliation. And this is going to be adding a brand new standalone expansion to the already established and loved series of Nemesis games. So if you are a fan of the series and you're looking to add more content to your game, this is a great opportunity for that. Or if you are interested in some of the Nemesis games and you're looking for an opportunity to jump in, this is a great opportunity for that as well. And if you've never heard about this game, this is a cooperative miniatures game where the players are going up against deadly aliens and trying to complete different scenarios using mostly action selection in order to try and win the game. And this one is going to be launching sometime in Q4. And the last two announcements I have are both for new campaigns for games that did launch a few years back, but both these games did get quite a lot of positive reception since they've been received by backers, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to mention them. And the first one is for Guards of Atlantis 2. And if you're not familiar with this game, this is a game that was inspired by the MOBA style video games, which means that you're going to be going team versus team, selecting different characters, each with their own special abilities, and trying to be the first to take control of their enemies' territories. And Guards of Atlantis does it in a way that has very little randomness because there's no dice rolling and no decks to shuffle, so if you win or lose, you can take full accountability of that. And the other campaign is for DEI Divide et Impera, and this is a competitive area control game where players are going to be generating different resources, playing as different factions with different special abilities, getting in battles, and just trying to earn the most victory points. And I think this is actually one of the first games launched over on GameFound. Don't quote me on that, but I do remember really wanting to back this one, but I ended up pulling out in the last second just because of my situation at the time, so this might be one that I end up backing this time around. We'll see, but it does look really interesting and I do recommend checking it out, and there is a ton of content out there if you want to get caught up on what the game offers. And just one more thing before we get started, I do want to make a quick shout out to Alex over at Boardgame Co, because if you do like these types of videos going over upcoming campaigns, I do these every single week, but Alex does them every single month, and he posts his video at the start of the month letting you know of all the campaigns that we know about so far for that month. So if you want to see a little bit into the future, he did just post his video up for the month of March, but he also posts a ton of other useful content as well. It looks like he just posted a review for DEI, so if you want to learn more about that and what's to come, you can check out that video and see what he thinks about it. And he also posted a video covering Nemesis and S.T.A.L.K.E.R. So I only just quickly mentioned them in this video, but he already has full-fledged videos up on his YouTube channel now that you can go ahead and check out. So if you are interested in any of those, I do recommend checking out his channel. He has a ton of useful content and can help you decide which games are right for you. But that's everything for the intro, so let's check out the campaigns. And the first campaign we have launches on March 5th, and this one's called Exit Strategy, and this plays 2 to 6 players and takes about 10 to 30 minutes to play. And this is a simple family weight strategy game where players are competing to be the first player to reach the exit tile at the opposite corner of the board. On a player's turn, they can either do one of two things. They can either place one of their walls anywhere out on the board, and the only restriction here is that you're not allowed to completely block off someone's exit space, but you do want to be strategic with these because you only have a limited number of walls, so you're really going to want to be careful when and where you place them. The other option you have on your turn is just to move your character one space, and if you do find yourself adjacent to another player's piece on your turn, you are able to jump over them, making your movement a lot more efficient, and you'll be able to jump into any of the 3 hexes on the opposite side of that player. And the player that reaches the opposite corner of their board first wins the game, but you can continue to play to see who comes in second and third. And if this one does sound interesting to you, I have links to the campaign in the description below, and of course you can click that notify me button if you want to get notified when the campaign launches. And launching on March 7th, we have From the Moon, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes about 90 minutes to play. And this looks like a really interesting Euro where you're going to be building up your moon base, exploring the surface of the moon, and sending out ships on missions into the far reaches of space in order to progress the future of mankind. Each player is going to be playing as their own faction with their own special abilities, and you're going to be using your player board in order to track your different resources as well as the upgrades to your moon base as you upgrade it throughout the game. And I do think this is the type of Euro game that I would really love because it looks like it has enough going on with it that there's a ton of good decisions to make, but then it also doesn't have a crazy long play time and it's not too complicated. But there is a particular design detail in this one that I really do love to see in my Euro games, and that's that this game doesn't really have your traditional concept of rounds. You're not going to be putting out your workers on your turn and then taking them all back at the same time. Instead, this game offers you a whole bunch of different actions that you can choose on your turn, and just one of those allows you to put workers out on the main board. And then once you've put all your workers out, you'll be able to recall them, which will move you up a progress track and then also gain you a reward. But players could be doing this all at completely different times in the game, which means that the game just continues to flow and move forward, and there's never any cleanup phase, which just keeps momentum going, and I think makes the game play a little bit faster than the traditional round structure. But on your turn, you have 5 different actions to choose from, and the first one I'll go over is to put your workers out onto the moon. But whenever you're doing that, you're actually going to be loading your astronauts into these different rovers. Then you're going to be putting that rover out onto the surface of the moon, out on that moon board. Whenever you do this, you'll be able to use your astronauts in order to take a resource action, a terrain-specific action, or a unique specialist action, depending on the astronaut that you deployed there. And there are different types of astronauts, and you can also upgrade those individual astronauts throughout the game in order to open up their possibilities. And of course, another action you could choose is the action to upgrade your astronauts or to recruit more astronauts to your base. And the third action you could choose is to build your greenhouse or expand it in order to generate more food for your astronauts. The fourth action you could choose is to expand or build in your laboratory. You'll have to pay to gain more space in your laboratory, but within that space you can pay to put tiles, which will give you different bonus actions or resource generation. And then the fifth and final action you could choose is to build rooms, and you can either do this on your own personal player board to generate more income, victory points, or victory point potential at the end of the game, or instead you could choose to build rooms on one of the 3 ship boards. And these are shared objectives that all the players are contributing to, and once a ship is completely full, it's going to be sent off and players won't be able to interact with that board for the rest of the game, but you're going to be scoring victory points for building rooms and contributing to these ships. But then you'll also be able to upgrade each of these rooms, giving you even more bonuses and victory point potential. You're going to be gaining points throughout the game with each of the actions that you take, but then you're also going to be scoring victory points at the end of the game, which is triggered as soon as that third ship gets sent off into space. At this point, each of the players will tally up the remainder of their victory points, and the player with the most at the end of the game wins the game. And if you are interested in this one, I have links in the description below, and of course you can click to get notified. Also launching on March 7th, we have the Quest Kids Giant Adventure. This plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play. And this looks like a really fun game to play with the kids because this is a game that will be taking up your entire room. And players will actually be able to walk along the different tiles and explore the dungeon as they try to collect the most treasure. Each of the tiles in the game are color-coded, with the green ones always giving you some sort of positive benefit with no risk of encountering a monster. Then the gray ones are going to give you an even better benefit, but there is a risk of encountering a low-level monster, with the red ones always having a stronger monster that you're going to have to encounter, but then always having the best rewards. And the rulebook will give you a few different configurations of how to set out the tiles out on the floor, but you can also just create your own once you get comfortable with the game as well. Each player is going to be starting out with 1 ability token, and you'll be spending these to scare off the different monsters. Then you're also going to be starting off with 3 health tokens in order to track your health, and a player bag where you're going to be storing any treasure that you gain throughout the game. On your turn, you can choose to do one of 2 things. You can either move to an unexplored tile that's adjacent to a previously explored tile, or you can choose to move to a previously explored tile that still has a monster that has gone undefeated. Whenever you move to a tile, you'll be gaining the benefits of that tile unless there's a monster guarding it, and in that case, you'll have to defeat the monster first. Each monster is going to have a number of colored icons associated with it, and these icons represent the ability tokens that you have to discard in order to defeat it. And if you're able to do that, you'll gain the reward of that tile, but if you can't defeat it, you're going to be losing a health token, and then you're going to be placing a token on that monster tile indicating that it has gone unresolved. But if you do run into a stronger monster, this isn't your only option, because you can also ask the other players for help. For any of the other players that decide that they want to help, they'll be contributing their own ability tokens to your battle, and they'll be gaining a Kind Kid card for each ability token that they contribute. Each of these Kind Kid cards will have some sort of benefit. It could either be victory points, a special ability, or just some other reward. The game ends once all the tiles have been revealed, and players will be adding up all the stars they gained from their defeated enemies, any of the treasure that they collected, as well as their kind kid cards, and the player with the most victory points wins the game. Also launching on March 7th, we have a new expansion to the game, The Sentinels of the Multiverse, which plays 1 to 5 players and takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play. And this new expansion is called the Disparation expansion. This is going to be adding new hero decks, villain decks, and environment decks. But each of these decks is also going to introduce the concept of the multiverse, because you're going to have heroes and enemies that can travel through the different dimensions and multiverses. And you're also going to have the different environments associated with it. And there's going to be 6 new heroes, 9 villains, 5 changing environments, a ton of different events and critical events, new variants, and new ways to play the game. The original game is a cooperative game, and it is a game that I did cover in the past, so I'll just go ahead and roll that footage for you now. And this game is a cooperative fixed deck card game where players are comic book heroes, and they're going to be fighting against 1 of 4 villains in 1 of 4 dynamic environments. Each player is going to have their own deck of cards depending on the character that they're going to be playing as, and they're going to be playing those cards to fight against the villain and the environment decks. On a player's turn, they can play a card from their hand, they can use an ability from one of their cards currently in play, and they can draw a card from their deck. Each round starts with the villain's turn, and then all players get a turn, and then the round concludes with the environment deck. For the villain and the environment, the top card from their deck gets put into play, which represents their turn. Play continues like this until the villain is brought down to 0 health, or until the villain has succeeded in their objective or brought all the heroes down to 0 health. Each villain, hero, and environment deck all play differently, so expect a lot of different permutations and replayability with this game. Also launching on the 7th, we have Fatal Knockout, and this plays 2 players and takes just 5 to 20 minutes to play. And this is a game that emulates those classic arcade fighters like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. And I think this one looks like a ton of fun and does a great job at accomplishing what it's trying to. Each player is going to be choosing a fighter at the start of the game, and they're going to be taking that fighter's associated deck of cards. And there's a whole bunch of fighters to choose from, and these different stats here represent what you're going to be finding inside that fighter's deck. So if a fighter is really high on movement, you're going to be finding a lot of options to move around the board, whereas if they're really high in damage, then you're going to be finding a lot of powerful attacks in their deck. And another really cool thing about this game is that the designers really embrace that arcade feel, and you'll actually be using the box for this game as a representation of one of those classic stand-up arcade games. You're going to be stacking the boxes on top of each other with one facing the players, and inside that box you have a track representing the relative position of your characters and a background representing the environment that you would see on your screen. On a round, players will be drawing up a hand of 3 cards, and each of these cards can have an initiative value to indicate which cards go first, as well as they could have some sort of requirements, but this isn't always the case. And then of course it'll have the actions that you'll be able to perform. Sometimes it'll just be a series of actions that you have to perform, while others might give you certain options of actions. Each card can also have a number of icons located at the top of the card, and for each of those icons you're going to be filling up your attack meter on your own personal player board. As you move up that meter, you're going to be unlocking different bonuses, but once you get to the end, you're going to be unlocking your ultimate card. And once you get that card, you're going to be adding it to your deck, unlocking a powerful attack. But even though you get 3 cards each round, you don't actually have to play all of them if you are the leading player, because as a leading player, you can decide whether to play 1, 2, or 3 of those cards. You're always going to be playing your first card face up for the other player to see, and then they're going to be immediately following up with the card that they want to play, and they're also going to be playing that one face up. But after that first set of cards is put out on the table, the leading player can decide to play another 1 or 2 cards face down, and then the other player will have to match whatever that player did. After that, you're going to be revealing all the cards, putting them in initiative order, and then resolving their effects. The different effects could allow you to gain shield tokens that you can put out on the board in front or behind your character to defend from different attacks, or they might allow you to move forward or backwards along the track, or throw weapons or traps into different spaces of the track, or to push, pull, or attack the other player if they are in specific spaces relative to you. And of course the whole goal here is to defeat the other player, and the first person to do that wins the game. And if this one sounds interesting to you, I have links in the description below. Also launching on the 7th, we have Ynaros Fallin, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes about 45 to 60 minutes to play. And this one is an area control game, but this one is a little bit different than most area control games that I've seen, because although you are trying to control the board to get the best advantage, you're actually trying to fulfill different requirements of the different areas in order to take control of that land, and then add that land tile to your own personal player board. And when you take that land tile, that is yours permanently, but a new one is revealed for you or another player to try and conquer. The game uses a hex board with 5 different spaces generating resources to any of the players currently standing on those spaces. Then there's also 6 different land tiles, and the 2 land tiles in the middle will provide an action that are available to any of the players that are able to land on that tile. But instead of players being able to collect these red tiles, they actually decay with every use, being replaced once they've been fully decayed. Players will be collecting the different resources to generate crystals, which I will come back to in a second, and each player will also be starting the game with their own shadow die that they'll be starting at the side with the 4. Each player's turn is going to be broken down into 3 different phases, and the first phase is going to allow you to perform 2 actions out of a possible of 4 options, and you can perform the same action twice. And the first option is to just draw 5 cards from the common pile into your hand, and these cards are going to be coming in a few different colors, but the color that matches your player color is going to make those cards a little bit more valuable to you, which I will come back to in a second. The second option is to just play those cards from your hand, and you'll be able to discard those cards in order to increase the value of your shadow die for each card that you discard. And the shadow die is something you're going to be managing throughout the game because it does have a few really important uses. And the first one is for movement, which is your third option. And in order to perform the movement action, you're going to be moving your miniature the number of pips as displayed on your shadow die. But then after you do that, you're going to be decreasing that die by 1 pip. And the fourth and final option is to choose one of your opponent's characters that are in line of sight of one of your characters out on the main board, and then you can discard a crystal to either do one of 2 things. You can either increase your shadow die by the amount that their shadow die is displaying, or instead you could use one of the powers from one of the lands that they have controlled. And as I said, when you do gain control of a land, you're going to be slotting it into your own personal player board, granting you access to that ability or your opponents if they are using this action. And during the second phase of your turn, you'll be resolving any of the movement effects, like gaining any of the resources for the tiles that you moved into. But it's at this point on your turn that you can also spend pips on your shadow die equal to the amount shown on a unrevealed location in order to reveal that location. And of course, you'll only really want to be doing this if you think that you're going to be the one to get there first and that you'll be able to fulfill the requirements of that location. So you'll probably want to reveal the ones that are closest to your characters. But if you did end your turn in a hex that also has an opponent player, this is going to trigger a battle. And it's in the battles where your cards really come into play, because any of the cards that have your color on it are going to be worth 2 battle points, while any of the other cards are going to be worth 1. And you can either spend that to inflict damage on your opponent or to heal your own wounds. But there are also 3 different colored battle dice, and at the start of the battle, each player can choose to discard one of their crystals in order to gain access to that battle die. And of course, you'll each be able to roll whichever ones you've claimed in order to get additional battle points to spend towards healing or damage. But another effect of this is whichever die that you claim will restrict your opponent from using battle cards of that color. Players will be gaining victory points depending on the outcome of the battle, and you could also cause one of your opponent's miniatures to be kicked off the board. That's everything that happens in the second phase, but then the third phase is an optional phase where the player can choose to convert any of their crystals into victory points. The game ends once one of 3 possible triggers are hit. Either a player has completely filled up their player board by claiming 6 different lands, or 3 of the magic land piles are fully depleted, or a single player has lost all of their crystals. Any of the players that have completely lost their crystals will instantly lose the game, but for any of the players that remain, the one with the highest victory points wins the game. Also launching on the 7th, we have Tiny Ninja's Tournament, and this plays 1 to 4 players. It takes about 5 to 20 minutes to play, and this is a family weight game where players are going to be going through an array of different skill testing dexterity games to determine who is the best ninja. Each tournament has 3 different games where you're going to be flicking some sort of component to hit some sort of object in order to score victory points. Each player is going to have 3 shots per turn, and then there's going to be 3 turns per game. Each of the games do play quite a bit different from each other, but they can use some of the same components depending on which games you're playing. But something that's really cool is that the games box is incorporated into the game, and you'll be able to swap out different backgrounds and flicking platforms in order to set up each of these different games in the tournament. And the core set of the tournament box is going to be offering 3 different games, with the first one being the arrow game. And in this game, you're going to be using a crossbow component and a few arrows in order to shoot at 3 different targets. You're going to be gaining points for moving the target out of its starting space, but you're going to be gaining more points if you're able to knock that target over. Of course, these arrows can ricochet and hit multiple targets, so if you are a particularly good archer, this might be the game for you. And the second game is the bola game, and to set this one up, you're going to be putting your 3 targets into a fixed tile, and then you're going to be flicking your bola kind of like a ring toss, trying to get it on top of the different targets. You're going to be scoring 3 points for getting it on a target that doesn't have a ring already on it, and then you're going to be getting 1 less point for each ring that you get onto a target that already has a ring on it. So the best way to optimize your points here is to try to get 1 ring on each of the different targets. And the third game is the orb game, where you'll be able to flick 3 different marbles, gaining more points for flicking marbles into the smaller holes. The campaign will also be adding some other content and expansions to introduce even more games into the mix, and then the player that gains the most points after the 3 different games wins the game. And of course, you can find links to this one in the description below. And also launching on the 7th, we have the campaign for the non-official Frosthaven and Gloomhaven compatible playmats. So this one is not a board game, but it is something that will help you play your board games. And for something like Gloomhaven that has a lot of components and a lot of cards, this might help you organize your play space just a little bit, because it'll allow you to have all the different spaces for the cards that you'll need to play for your different characters, and just bring a little bit more of a premium experience to your Gloomhaven sessions. And launching on March 8th, we have the Mandala Mine, and this plays 1 to 2 players and takes about 30 to 45 minutes to play. And the publisher just snuck this one in as I was filming this video, so you just barely made the cut. And it's currently 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not able to do any more research for this week, so I'm just going to go ahead and read the description that they have here on BGG, because in this game you play as the frame of mind of a person who is meditating on an image of a mandala. The person is distracted at the beginning of their meditation, and your goal is to help them focus. This game is played over a series of rounds where you'll move 1 pawn around a 3x3 grid of mandala cards. You're going to be removing distractions using your frame of mind actions and mandala abilities. Before each game, you'll be able to choose a scenario to play, which provides a unique puzzle to solve. Each scenario has 2 different phases that have different goals for you to complete. You'll win the game by achieving optimal focus at specific cards in the first phase, and then by removing all distractions from every mandala in the meditation in the second phase. So that's just a quick intro to the game here, but if you do want to know more, I will have a link to their campaign in the description below. And launching on March 10th, we have Cake of Doom, and this plays 3 to 6 players. It takes about 20 to 40 minutes to play, and this is a party game where players are alien invaders trying to compete to take over the world by bribing the different regions of humanity with, of course, cake. To set up the game, you're going to be setting out the Doom card along with a few different regions of the world, and then each player is going to be getting a special ability card, as well as 5 cake cards and 3 mischief cards. The mischief cards are used to harm your opponents and help yourself. On your turn, you'll be able to play as many of your mischief cards as you want in order to help yourself, usually to pick up more cards. And then you'll be able to choose one of the locations to bribe by discarding as many cake cards as is required by that card in order to successfully bribe that region. But at this point, any of the other players at the table can play any of their mischief cards to harm you, usually by sabotaging your cake cards and reducing the amount of your bribe. So you may want to offer more cake cards in your bribe than is required, since some of these may be reduced by the other players. At the end of your turn, you're going to be drawing more cards into your hand, but then the amount of cards that you get to draw is going to increase every single round, speeding up the end of the game. Players are going to be gaining victory points for each of the regions that they claim, and then the player with the most at the end of the game wins the game. And that is everything I have for you this week, but don't leave yet because we still have a couple awesome giveaways to announce, and I know a lot of you are going to be pumped for this one because the first giveaway is for Scholars of the South Tigris. And this is the next game in the South Tigris series, which is the next game in the grander series offered by Garfield Games, where it's exploring different regions with each of them focusing on a particular set of mechanisms. And the main mechanism in the South Tigris series is dice worker placement, which is one of my favorite mechanisms when it comes to Euro games. And this is the second of the South Tigris games released so far, and of these 2 games, I think this one looks the most interesting to me. This one is supposed to be the heavier of the 2, but I did play the original one, and I did read the rules to this one, and just from my own observation, this one looks like it's going to have a little bit simpler of a player board, and the first one just had a ton of options and cards out at any given moment, and this one doesn't look like it's going to have quite as much, which I think is a good thing. So even though this one's supposed to be a little bit heavier, I think this one's going to be easier to play because it does look like it's going to be a little bit less fiddly and less AP prone. But like I said, I haven't played this one yet, so you might want to check out some of the other reviews from other content creators, but I will be trying to play this one in the next week or so, so if I'm able to play it before the campaign ends, you can always try to find me on the Discord and see what my opinion is once I've actually got a game in. But Garfield Games is just knocking it out of the park with all their games. Last I checked, they had 3 games in the top 100 on Board Game Geek, which is really impressive because only a few publishers can actually make that claim. And it seems like they do a really great job consistently delivering games that continually impress their audience. So if you are a fan of Garfield Games, you've probably already backed this one, but if you haven't played any of them yet and you do like heavier Euro games, I do recommend checking this out, and I believe they do have a tabletop simulator or Tabletopia link somewhere on this campaign, but if you can't find it, we do have it linked over on the Discord as well, and you can find a link to our Discord in the description below. And if you do want to try the game but you don't have anyone to play with on TTS, our Discord is also full of a ton of really friendly people that are happy to accommodate. And like I said, I'll be trying to play it as well, and if there's an extra seat, any one of you are welcome to join. And this giveaway is going to be for the Scholars Pledge, which comes with the core game and promo pack, and under this giveaway, just leave a comment down below with the hashtag Scholars, and let me know where you feel like you're a self-proclaimed scholar. I mean, I did go to school for engineering, and I actively work as an engineer, but of course I do also have an endless wealth of knowledge in board games, DIY projects, and watches. I'm allowed to have other hobbies. Please don't unsubscribe. I'll be sad. And the next giveaway we have is for Ancient Terrible Things Reawakened, and this is a really interesting Yahtzee-style game where players are playing competitively as they go down a river in a riverboat, visiting different locations and encountering many ancient terrible things. And this is a game that looks like a lot of fun to me personally. I love the theme, I love the artwork, and of course I do think the design looks really solid as well. And this is one of the few games that I did decide to back this year, and I'm pretty excited about that because I don't really have any Yahtzee-style games in my collection right now, so I think this is going to fit right in. And I've been doing these weekly videos for like 3 years now, so it's not that I haven't seen a lot of Yahtzee-style games, just none of them have really piqued my interest enough to actually purchase one. Probably my favorite is King of Tokyo, but my brother owns it, so I'm not going to buy the same game that he already owns. So I'm really excited to try this one, and this one is offered on Tabletopia. You can go ahead and try it completely for free, so I will be trying to play this one before the campaign ends because I just normally try to do that for each of the campaigns that I back. And this is a competitive game where players will be visiting different areas of the board in order to be able to play that specific location's actions, but each location will also have a different thing or monster there that the players can attack, and when you do that, you're going to be rolling your dice, Yahtzee style, trying to complete different combinations in order to fulfill the requirement of that card. Some cards are easier than others, so there is a little bit of push your luck there, which I am a huge fan of, but you will be able to gain some different abilities and actions to help you along the way. And I should probably mention that there is a pledge that offers a denim playmat and a really cool dice tower in the shape of a riverboat. And lucky us, this is the pledge that we get to give away, so whoever wins this one's going to be getting a copy of Ancient Terrible Things, as well as the riverboat dice tower, the denim playmat, and the Kickstarter promos. And to enter this giveaway, just leave a comment down below with the hashtag terrible, and let us know what was the last mildly terrible thing that happened to you. I hope I've done a pretty good job at hiding my frustration throughout this video, but there's actually a massive snowstorm outside right now. My power keeps going on and off constantly, which messes up all my screens, turns off my TV, and causes me to have to restart filming from where I left off. So it's been a great night. But luckily, my dedication to all of you is much greater than any frustration that can be inflicted on me. Aww. Now's a good time to subscribe down below. Do it now. Good luck in the giveaways, but now let's go ahead and draw the winner for last week's giveaway, which was for a pledge for the Red Dragon in the Undercity. And to draw a winner, I use this application here. All these extra names down here are bonus entries for my Patreon subscribers. If you like this sort of content and you want to help make all these efforts just a little bit more sustainable for me, I do have a Patreon down below, and I truly appreciate any support towards helping me make this content. But I'm always trying to think of different ways to give back, and you do get some perks with the Patreon, including some bonus entries into these giveaways every single week. But let's go ahead and draw those comments and draw the winner. And the winner is Mark Spellmeyer, and this is one of our Patreon subscribers, so congratulations, Mark. I'll reach out to you and let you know that you won yourself a pledge for the Red Dragon Inn. And we did have a couple other giveaways, including the Rapid Stat Dice and a pledge for What on Earth Are You Talking About? These were run over on the Discord, and to enter those giveaways, all you have to do is visit the giveaway channel and just go ahead and click the emoji underneath that giveaway. And for the giveaways over on Patreon, those are automatically drawn at the end of 7 days, so there's usually a little bit of time after I've posted the video for you to still enter that giveaway. So if you head over there right now and you're watching this soon enough, you still might be able to enter those giveaways before the winners are automatically drawn. But that is everything I have for you this week. I hope this ends up being slightly shorter than the video from last week where we just had a ton of games. There wasn't too many games this week, but this still took me a long time to film. I'm not sure why, maybe because the power just kept going out. But like I've said, I've been doing this for 3 years and I'm still very inefficient at it. But I haven't lost hope yet. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.